Hello, Channel Automation Podcast listeners. Welcome back to another deep dive into the techniques that convert leads. I'm your host, Casey Arias, and today I am joined by Michael Lucyk of Lifetime. They pretty much handle everything for the whole home remodeling suite, like windows, sidings, door, bath, roofing, the whole shebang. So how are you doing today, Michael?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course, we're happy to have you. So to start, let's talk a little bit about Lifetime and your position there.
Lifetime was, still privately owned, one of the only privately owned companies of this size. Absolutely impressive from the ownership down. Located in Colorado, have a division in Arizona as well. I am the call center director for both markets. So making sure that lead generation is turned into appointments and eventually turned into sales.
Very, very cool. Do you like doing your call center life?
I have tried and I have failed, but it's because I'm passionate about it. I think the touch points in the beginning of the customer journey are arguably the most important. And so how we communicate, communicating the way customers want us to communicate, which you guys have been a huge help with, makes a world of difference. So.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying absolutely to us being a huge help. I'm saying that that's sort of our MO, is making sure that we are talking to people in the way that they want to be talked to. And so one of the things that I did want to discuss on that same vein is I know a lot has changed for the home improvement industry between like now and COVID and pre-COVID. So what kind of big differences have you noticed in terms of getting leads to respond to you and like conversion techniques? I mean, it's already been almost 5 years now. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, time flies, right? It's crazy. So I would argue that even during COVID, we didn't see the aftermath until people went back to work. It was almost easier to get a hold of people because everyone was home. But you can tell that social interaction has changed. And whereas people were open to phone calls and I hate to use the word telemarketing, but that's essentially what it is, has kind of worn out its welcome. I think there's still a ton of opportunity on that side of the business to have good human interaction, but nothing beats the text message, the audio, sending messages that way. That's just how people communicate now. And it's been a challenge to just understand the why. I know if I personally was a customer, I would want to talk to a person, but even me getting stuck, getting text messages during the podcast, I'd much rather have them there than people blowing up my phone. So it's been an interesting strategy change, but one that we adapted to pretty quickly.
Have you noticed, I know that there's usually a perfect marriage between the people who are already converting on phone calls and then the people who are converting on text messages. Are you able to kind of grab that extra group over? I know those phone call guys, you're probably maintaining about the same strategy, right? Or are you also sending them text messages?
Yeah, no, it's a culmination of both. I have a pretty strong cadence in regards to a couple of phone calls, just touch points, voicemail, email. But we're sprucing in the text messages as well, and it's been incredible. One of the things that Vic even mentioned this podcast was I sent him the sales results of one of our customers who literally said they blocked every home improvement company that was calling them on their cell phone. And because we sent a text message, we made it easy, comfortable. They liked the interaction through channel automation. They booked an appointment and they bought with us. And that just goes to the power.
I love the success stories.
Yeah. That's a no chancer turned into a customer and a lifetime customer at that. So very, very cool stuff.
It is interesting because a lot of people think that there is a difference in age gap in terms of how people want to be communicated with. And so what they'll do is they will look at their analytics and be like, okay, so my audience is primarily 40, 50 plus. And so they're going to want phone calls versus people who might be under the age of 40. They're going to want text messages. And I think that the both of us are a perfect contradiction to that group because you prefer to have phone calls and I prefer to have text messages. And so grouping people just by assumption, it is something that can actually shoot you in the foot. And that's sort of
I agree. And I think that grouping them by what we think is an easy way to put yourself behind the 8 ball because it really is about the customer experience. And if you offer as many channels and avenues to get in contact with you, let them choose. And that's why, when we first get a new prospect, we try both. and see which one they're more comfortable with. And they'll tell you. I mean, one thing people aren't afraid to do is speak their mind nowadays. And so they'll let you know, and it just gives us more opportunity to connect and give them a good experience.
I noticed that too. A lot of people are a lot more bold in their responses. I personally like it, but I know that in terms of like having very kosher customer service, there's a little bit of struggle there. How much has like your team adapted to that kind of change, like big shift in lead conversion? Like, have you had to kind of change the scripts, or is it like just, a little bit more work in terms of getting that lead to trust you?
I think using it as an asset to, again, reintroduce the phone call and say, hey, happy to text you while you're at work. Did you want to have time to go over more of the details, the minutia that we don't want to just put in huge paragraph texts? We're using it as a supplement, really, that more than anything else. Lead conversion and things like that are all climbing we're hitting record numbers of issued appointments all in the last 8 to 12 months. And I think that's because, one, the dialing strategy, but also really the communication strategy in general. And yes, it's not perfect. Like, there are definitely hiccups, but you find those out up front and you're not playing the guessing game.
Exactly right. And being able to rely on those analytics and that feedback coming in, it's one of those things where people, especially as a person in the call center, you definitely, I think, have a good pulse on not to be too reactive. Like, maybe one or two people are like, hey, I don't like your messaging, leave me alone. It's really tempting to kind of stop everything and be like, oh, this is not working. Let's do a different strategy. And so, like, at what point do you decide, hey, this overall is not working? Is there kind of like a threshold of responses, or rather the lack of responses? I kind of want to get your expert opinion on that.
I really use the analytics on channel automation to identify how many people are actually connecting with us. And the numbers are off the charts. Like, I think it's like 97 point something percent at least interact. That could be a stop. That could be a not interested, but it's at least communication. So I don't believe that there's ever a threshold decision. I'm a data guy, so like, I'll never make a decision off of emotion. So if someone really freaks out and says, I don't want your text messages, I don't want your service, I'm not going to pull the plug. It's too obvious now. And I think the litmus test kind of shows that in general, it's going to work 97% of the time. So when you're dealing with a large number of consumers like we are, that 3% could be hundreds or maybe thousands of people, but it still doesn't, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the people that are using the tool the way it's intended.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned our analytics on here, just because we haven't really even talked about it yet on the podcast. That's something that's going to be up and coming as of I would say late 2024. We already have our analytics dialed in, but we want to make it so that way you're getting the push reports, you're getting all of that data sent to you the way that you want it to be sent. And that's something that we believe a lot in, rather than just solely relying on talking to the customers how they want to be talked to. We also want to make sure on the back end, your team is able to interact with the system the way that they want to interact with, making it easy on both ends.
That's been one of my joys of working with you guys, is how adaptable you are. Seriously, like, it's...
We hated the call center minutia. All of us have had like over a decade in call center experience. And one of the things that we really hated is trying to like fit ourselves into new software rather than having the software fit to us. And, as a growing business, that is something that we are able to do, because we actually can listen, can meet, and can alter our program in order to fit people like what they want to do with the system. And that sounds like a whole commercial now, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop dictating all the new stuff. It's just, I'm really excited. It's a very interesting time in terms of technology in general. And so I wanted to kind of lead into, what is your opinion on having the entire booking process, and we're talking about setting, confirming, and issuing, being handled potentially automatically by AI? Is that something that spooks you? Do you think you have to have a marriage of human interaction?
I am the option B, and I always will be, because I think that there's a large opportunity to feel like a number when you can tell you're interacting with just AI and just don't have that personal touch. I always say it's an accessory, it's a tool for a person to enhance what they're actually capable of. If you have a good personality, you're sweet on the phone, you can maybe coerce someone who's not as interested in an appointment into getting an appointment. That's all going to be done vocally through your tonality. But in all reality, like if we spent all day hoping for the perfect prospect over the phone, we'd still be waiting for one. And so supplementing the AI process and the AI in general, to me, is just a nice addition, but they have to work together. That's at least my personal opinion.
Oh yeah, no, that's okay. I'm glad that you bring it up because, we have a difference of opinion on it. So I kind of want to delve into it a little bit. There are some people who 100% believe that if you are speaking to a customer, having AI in general, especially up front when you're trying to book the most important part, which is setting that appointment, it's something that you kind of are hesitant to release to AI. And I think that we are in a very interesting position right now where we are in 2024, where AI is starting to become more indistinguishable than an actual live person. And so I'm wondering, like, within the next year, if that is going to be something that is more like people are a little like warming up a little bit more to AI. Have you tried the new like Chat GPT voice system where you talk to them like a real person?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and I think it would be tremendous for even like rehash programs, or, there's people who fall off the mat for 6 months and, we don't hear from them. And then, I could pay someone or some people, a team, to go try and chase those down. Or I could have AI get them interested, push them back over to my people to book the appointment, which is kind of the strategy that I see long term, is starting to implement it more in the areas where I feel like we can really use it. Obviously, I use our partnership with Costco as an example of, that's that real white glove person to person experience where we don't need as much automation or AI, but in almost every other aspect of the business, you guys are critical in making sure that we have not just good connectivity rate, but to your point, issuing, setting, confirming, all the things. So definitely open to it as we grow.
What is your opinion about people being able to do self-service appointment booking?
Loaded question.
That's why I
knowing
asked it.
Well, I mean, I'm of the belief, again, like I've said, of, making sure that people are able to be people, and specifically the way that they're commissioned. They get paid off a piece of the sale if they set the appointment. That's how I choose to do it, to incentivize them to set quality appointments. The self-serving takes that out and therefore would probably cut a good portion of their money. So it's something that I've always teetered on. Obviously, I know from an efficiency standpoint, it makes sense. But it's something we'll continue to look at different ways to incentivize the people in there while using the tech to push us further.
I know that it seems like there may be opportunity in order to bonus them out for other reasons, at least in my opinion. This is something that I was speaking to Vic about recently, is like, we want to keep people bonused out. And one of the things that a lot of people in the call center are concerned about, and it's an absolutely valid concern, I would be too if it was me, is that the AI is going to start replacing those lower performing representatives, that it's like, you may as well put a robot there because they're doing just as well. And so do you think that it's worthwhile for the company to have the AI sort of as the lowest threshold, but keep your really excellent converters? Or do you think that it's like, don't cut out those jobs, have the AI always used as a tool, and it's okay if you have to spend a little bit more money in order to get there?
I could see both working. I mean, for me, right to your point, the high producers and things like that, that would be more of your warm data coming in. As your data gets colder, I could obviously see opportunity for AI to kind of take over and run campaigns like that, almost as an entire outbound program. But, even just the little bit that we've dealt with AI since bringing you guys on board, it's just been used as like a supplementary tool to what they're already doing, having manual chats and things like that. I know we're going to be doing live chat with our new website that launches in August. That'll be exciting, using you guys for that to help. So it's the inevitable beast, right? Like it's here. AI is here, and it doesn't have to always be looked at as a job replacement. It's a job enhancement. So At least that's how it is.
It's scary to I completely agree. That's what we want to believe,
Yeah.
at least,
Yeah.
you know? And I always use this analogy, like when back in like around the 80s era, when computers started to be more of like a home system rather than, you know, you work at it at your job, but then when you go back home, you don't have any access to it. It was one of those things I think that's equally as big as a change where people are like, oh gosh, I'm going to be replaced by
Right.
computers. I am an excellent paper
Right.
filer. I am an excellent organizer. And now all of a sudden this computer does it for me. And then you have to learn new skill sets. I think having the skill sets, as a call center representative, somebody who is trained specifically in order to convert on those appointments that are already being a little bit difficult or they're not responding to you, having those tools like, hey, chat GPT or hey, channel automation assistant, how should I reach out to this person? Or can I send them some videos? Can I send them some pictures? Something that makes me stand out. You know, at least you have an arsenal in your back pocket.
The tool belt. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I also want to believe that it's an enhancement. And I know that the way that CEOs and owners look at it, it is like, okay, I can save a lot of money by replacing people and I don't have to pay for health insurance for some of these guys as well. Yeah. And so I think that at the end of the day, if you do end up using channel automation or somebody else to do automated text, or if you're using AI, and I want to hear your opinion on this as well, if you want to use it to replace your lower performing representatives, you're going to do that. But if you are somebody who has a high culture value in having the people involved in that, even though you are going to be paying people a little bit more than an AI, I think that is where it makes a difference. You're going to make that decision in the end anyway. It's not something like AI is taking over. I have to replace my people. But do you think that's going to get to that point?
Not at Lifetime. I don't know. I can't speak for any other companies, but I know that for as long as I'm here, it's people first and technology A1 or 1A. But you know, I think the way you described it is exactly right. So asking it, how should I frame this? How should I, you know, have this conversation with the customer? What would be the best way to interact based off of the conversation we've been having? There's so many ways. It's communication on steroids. It really is. It's incredible. And I look forward to every opportunity that it gives us to make us better in the call center.
What do you think about it for dealing with cancellation rescheduling? Because in my opinion, at least when I have been trying to handle AI and I see that the person already is kind of on the fence about it and they're like, yeah, something else came up. I don't want to, you know, have somebody in my home for a few hours at this time. I just am not able to do it right now. I think that having that not even initial communication, but secondary communication to try to get a hold of them again, it could be a touchy subject. Do you think that's something that automation is going to be able to handle in terms of almost like the second point of initial contact? Or is that something?
It's interesting. It really does depend on the customer because, you know, if I'm taking a cancellation call for Lifetime and, you know, I'll typically assume that we're rescheduling. So I'll say, oh, let me get the calendar pulled up real quick. I'm so sorry to hear. Hopefully you have something fun going on that day and kind of have that conversation, which I'd love to see AI go against me. Just kidding. But like having that conversation.
No, that's my whole point. I agree with you. And this is probably a hot issue in terms of like, you know, I'm supposed to be like part of the big pro AI is going to do everything type of team and automation for everything team. But I completely agree with you.
It's because of the tools that you supply that we can even have those human interactions as well. So like if you're born with it and you have that persuasive skill, positive persuasion, of course, but persuasive skill, then you get tripped up sometimes. You need help. AI is there to kind of back you up every step of the way without having to be the totality of the conversation. And it's interesting. I think there's a really careful blend of two really good ingredients that make it just pop.
It is interesting also trying to transfer from automation over to AI. And that's something that if you are going to be starting out with channel automation and you're not already with us, it's going to be a little bit of an experience trying to get your AI to have that nice seamless transition where somebody is like getting the automated messaging like, hey, this is what we do. This is what our company is about. And having those nice inline videos where you're introducing yourself and then somebody responds back. It's like it could go two directions. It can go straight to the call center team where they get a notification, or it's like the AI is essentially there to kind of hold down the fort until somebody is able to jump in and start like giving that extra value, saying like, oh, I saw that you're rescheduling from your previous one where you went to Hawaii. So how was your trip in Hawaii? I do think that there is some sort of way to factor in all of those points, especially with AI having memory. And that's something that is new for the open AI, where it's able to remember previous conversations. So I think it's very interesting.
Yeah. I think there's a ton of opportunity, even looking at the amount of after hours calls that come in and text messages. And that might be the ground floor for us on testing how that looks is, you get people, if it's Arizona, for instance, our Arizona market's currently an hour behind us. So if we shut down operations in the call center at 7, it's only 6 there. They're still trying to get through. Oh, I forgot to confirm my appointment for tomorrow. Can you still come? Having AI where I don't have people in the call center at 8:00 at night, but to respond to that. And that's a confirmed appointment. I mean, that's something that would have fallen through the cracks that we would have to try and scramble together a same day issue tomorrow. So yeah, I think it's fascinating what it can do.
It is interesting as well because, like, especially me, the time of the day that I think about the things like, oh crud, I forgot, it's always like in the middle of the night when my brain is finally quiet and I'm not being distracted by things. And having the ability, what you were talking about before, people being able to interact with a bot essentially on your website, that chat system, it's a way to kind of skirt around those legal texting hours because you're not texting anybody anymore. And so being able to kind of front load that information to your clients, like, hey, by the way, if you got any thoughts, you're welcome to go and ask any kind of questions to our chat over here. And they can help you out, or having somebody live maybe in the other side of the country. I'm not sure. Well, we're going to be probably wrapping up for today very soon. And so is there any last thoughts for people who are maybe like hesitant to start with automation, or if like you want to like say, hey, make sure out of everything, this is where I'm an expert, have at it.
I mean, I think there's no one that was more hesitant than I was. And, coming from a totally different industry to come into home improvement, it was a learning curve of speech cadence, conversations, things like that. And I was not necessarily the biggest proponent. It was one of the first things I did when I came into Lifetime was bring on channel automation. And, you guys came highly recommended, and I'm open to it. And it's really revolutionized the call center here. And we're seeing it with data. We're seeing, I feel it in my gut, but it's also the data's not lying. It says that, if you program it the way you want to, and that's what's so nice about the individuality and the care that you guys put into each of your customers, it shows, because there's things that I wanted to take baby steps on. There's things I wanted to go full bore at, and you were able to tackle both. And so, if you're hesitant, it can't do any worse damage than leads just sitting in your CRM, not being called. That people don't want to call, even if you're paying them $100 an hour, just to sit there and dial 500 dials a day and get no one on the phone. Let it work its magic and use it in tandem with your people. Have a high culture, good people, and the automation, and you've got a success.
Gosh, I couldn't have phrased that better. That was a lovely little package with a bow you did there. That's very nice. All right, well, thank you so much again for attending the podcast. Whether you love or hate, this is for the listeners, of course, whether you love or hate what you heard today, we do want to hear from you. And so feel free to have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you're ready to fight saying, hey, I have a strong opinion about this, you can email us at hello@channelautomation.com. You can leave comments on any of our social media. We've got LinkedIn, we've got YouTube, we have a TikTok as well. So you can jump into those and leave comments in that section, or you can visit us at www.channelautomation.com and get a kind of an idea of what our products are and, just kind of take a look around without any kind of commitment necessarily to meet with us. But of course, we would like to meet and talk with you as well. And so please consider subscribing to this podcast, and you can get free marketing tips and tricks, and also hear from people like Michael, who is call center expert of conversion and has a different input than the rest of our team. And so, as always, make sure to keep listening and keep your lead conversion high.